guys, and welcome to part 2 of my 3-part series where we go ahead and find out what you can get with a $5,000 budget in Disney World. Now, for this series, it's a 3-part series, so Part 1 was looking at value resorts. This video, part 2, will be looking at moderate resorts. And then my next video, part 3, will be looking at deluxe resorts. So for this series, we are only going to be looking at what you're going to get once you're inside the Disney bubble. So that means it's not going to include transportation to and from Disney World. It's only going to include your resort, your food, park tickets, pretty much anything that you would get when you are going to build your Disney World package, when you're going online and making those reservations. And I'm also going to be using, only for this series, the quick service dining plan for our food budget, even though I don't actually recommend getting the dining plan. And I do have a full video explaining those reasons, and I'll have that link down below in case you're interested. But for the sake of this series, I'm going to use that just because even though I don't recommend the dining plan itself, it does give you a really good number for budgeting your food. Obviously, you can use that number however you want while you're at the park, but it is a good number to go by for your food budget. So another thing that you might be thinking, if you watched part 1 with the value resorts, I didn't go into art of animation. And the reason for that is because our mock-up vacations that we're doing for this has a family of 4. And the art of animation is mostly made up of suites. So they're going to be more expensive, and you really don't need a suite if you have a family of 4, especially if you're in a budget state of mind. So if you do have a larger family or you want to check out those numbers, pay attention to this video and even the part 3 deluxe video, because those are going to be similarly priced for the art of animation suites. So before we get into it, I did just want to introduce myself. In case you're new here, I'm Allison, and here at my channel, I love to make all types of Disney World content, also some tips for traveling with your family, as well as some vlogs from our own family vacation. So if that's content that you're interested in seeing, definitely click that red subscribe button, and let's get into our part 2 of the series. Let's head into the moderate resort area. And as you can see, I have June 14th, 2026 to June 19th, 2026 to adults, to children, ages 8 and 5. These were the same numbers that I had for the value resorts video as well. So let's just come down and see what we have at first glance. So we have Disney's Port Orleans, Riverside at $301, Caribbean Beach at $299, French Quarter also at $301, and Coronado Springs at $276. So you can see that Coronado Springs is going to be our cheapest moderate resort. So we're going to go ahead and start with that one. Okay, and again, we are going to go with the standard location, standard view. I'm not even going to jump into the preferred location for this right now. So we're going to go ahead and see what we can do with this. All right, so it's automatically going to select 6 park days for us, but we're going to go ahead and move that down to 4. And we are right now at $4,178, and that's just with the resort and the park tickets. So we're going to move on ahead and see what happens when we add in our quick service dining plan for our food budget. All right, we're going to select the quick service dining plan, and that's going to bump us up to $4,783. All right, so like I mentioned in video 1, I always do suggest getting the travel protection plan, as well as myself. I always like to include lightning lanes as sort of a budget area, because that is something that my family we always want to get lightning lanes no matter what. So that's about $200 for something that, we consider a priority. If you don't consider that a priority, that's about $200 that you can put into something else in the trip. So that could be, another night at your resort, or souvenir money, whatever it is that you want, because this is already obviously has brought us up to 4,973. So for a $5,000 budget, obviously this is not going to allow us to budget in our lightning lanes. And so again, to make this a little bit more realistic for everybody, not everybody needs the travel protection plan. You might have some travel insurance with your credit card or something else to that degree. So that is really going to, possibly give you some wiggle room for your lightning lanes or other souvenirs if that's what you want to do. So I did go ahead and punch those numbers in. As you can see, I left the Value Resort numbers up here just so that we can have an idea of all the things that we're looking at. So with what we just did, we did our base package with trip insurance, and then we have $26.96 left for souvenirs. So that is no lightning lanes and not a lot of money for souvenirs. If this works for your family, then that's great. But I'm actually going to jump back in and see if we can play with our package a little bit to give us a little bit more wiggle room. We're back at the main booking page for Coronado Springs, and we're going to go ahead and still choose the standard room. So this time, instead of doing 4 park days for 1 park per day, we're actually going to bump it down to 3 park days with Park Hopper. So if your family loves to go to all 4 parks, having 3 park days with Park Hopper really gives you plenty of time to be able to visit all 4 parks without feeling super rushed or anything like that. It's obviously a little bit more hectic than 1 park per day, but if you are the type of family that, maybe Animal Kingdom is half day, for some families, Hollywood Studios might be half day, so that might be 1 day that you can kind of lump together with those 2 parks and then spend a full day at Epcot and Magic Kingdom, whatever works for your family. But the 3 Park Hopper days does give you plenty of time to be able to go to all 4 parks. So let's go ahead and see what that does for us. Right, we're still going to add on the dining plan. All right, so we are down to 4,524, and that is going to give us plenty of room to add our travel protection and our lightning lanes and have a little bit left over for souvenirs. Again, if lightning lanes are not a priority, you can lump that money into your souvenir pot or, whatever you want to use it for. That is extra money that would be usable for you on your trip. Okay, so I went ahead and put our new numbers in. So we have 4,714.38 with our base package. This is including the trip insurance, 3 park days with Hopper, $200 for lightning lanes, and that leaves us with $86 for souvenirs or extra food. Now, this layout here feels so much better than this one up here that when we had the 4 parks, when we had the 4 park days, 1 park per day. So just bumping it down to 3 parks with Hopper gave us this extra money. So if you're not using lightning lanes, that's almost $300 extra that you could be using elsewhere. So doing this really helps out our situation. So let's move on to the next moderate resort to see what we can get when our room rate is a little bit higher to start with. So let's go ahead and see what we can get into for that. Port Orleans, both Port Orleans are only $2 more than Caribbean Beach. We're gonna skip Caribbean Beach right now and just go straight to the Port Orleans. And whatever we get to, you can just minus, a few dollars or whatever for the Caribbean Beach. So we're gonna go ahead and choose French Quarter. Okay, so our standard location for French Quarter is going to be 301. And the reason why I chose French Quarter over Riverside was because since, they do have a preferred location, but French Quarter is so much smaller than Port Orleans that you really don't need to bump up to the preferred location. At Riverside, it's a lot bigger, so it would make more sense to get that preferred room. But so for this video, for being budget friendly, we're going to go with the smaller resort so that we can get that lower price without feeling like we're really missing out on that preferred location. All right, so we're actually going to do the same thing that we did with Coronado, is go down to our 3 days. Because look, when we go to 4, we're already at 4,300. So that is not going to give us a lot of wiggle room. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to 3 park hopper days. So as you can see, this has brought us up to 4,000. So we're not going to have as much wiggle room as we had with Coronado. All right, we're going to pick our quick service plan, and that's going to bump us up to 4,665. Right, we're going to add on our travel protection. Okay, so this is bumping us up to 4,855. So if I keep it as is and add on our lightning lanes, this is going to put us obviously just over 5,000. So that is going to give us no souvenir money. So if you are the type of family that doesn't care about lightning lanes or not going to get lightning lanes, and you have this almost $200 for souvenirs, this might be fine for you. This would be fine. This would get you everything that you need. But if you do like to have lightning lanes and souvenirs, we need to look at something else. So we're going to go back and see what we can wiggle around with and have some different options to see how we can get this price lowered a little bit more to get those extra things. Booking page, and there are a couple things that we can do here to get that number down a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one first, which is to keep the number of nights that we are staying, and we're going to lower down the ticket price. So what we can do is we can do 3 parks, 1 park per day. That's going to lower our number. As you can see, that's going to lower our number quite significantly. Obviously, 3 parks per day is going to leave out a park. So if you are the type of family where you have a certain park that you don't care about, this might be a great way to get that number lowered, because you can say, you know what, this trip, we're not going to go to that park, and we're just going to do 3 parks per day at the ones we really like, and that will really significantly lower your total here. Another thing that you could do is you can go down to 2 days with park hopper. And that is obviously going to get you 2 days to get to all 4 parks. Now that can feel tight. It can feel rushed. It really depends on your priorities and what you want to do with your family, how you feel about park hopping. If it's your first time, you might really just want to see all 4 parks. Or if you've been quite a few times and you don't mind about knocking one down, you can do the 3 parks per day. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the 3 parks per day, 1 park per day. Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking, you know what, the 2 park hopper days would be fine for me, you're actually going to do a little bit better than what I'm showing, because your number is only going to be 3,422 and we are going to be at 3,007. So, that could be the way to go for you, and then you'll have some extra money to play with. All right, adding on the quick service is going to put us up to 4,324. All right, we're going to add on that travel protection. And I'm just going to quickly, I did say this in the last video, but just in case you didn't watch that or you missed it, as you can see, when I add on the travel protection plan, it does bump up our total due today, because when you put on the travel protection, you do have to pay for it up front. So if you don't want to do that, you can actually take it off when you're booking, pay your $200 deposit, and then you can go back in and add the travel protection and pay for it then. So you don't have to pay for it up front. I just have it on here just so that obviously we can get our numbers right. So as you can see, we are at 4,514, which really gives us quite a good amount of wiggle room that, if you wanted, you could even add on Memory Maker and have a little bit of souvenir money, depending on what you wanted to do. If we added on Memory Maker, that would bump us up to 4,699, and obviously that still gives us room for lightning lanes and like $100 for souvenirs. But if you would prefer to have that extra, $180 for souvenirs, obviously you don't need to get the Memory Maker. I'm actually going to remove the Memory Maker for this video. I didn't mean to keep it on there. We're going to remove that. But just wanted to show that you could add on Memory Maker in this scenario and still have enough money for lightning lanes and some souvenirs as well. I have our booking set up here for 4,514 for a base package with trip insurance and 3 park days, 1 park per day, $200 for lightning lanes, and $286 for souvenirs and extra food. Now, it is very interesting to look at this and everything that we can get going all the way back to value resorts, because with like even All-Star Sports, the souvenir money is like $100 less than we have here. So really, it all comes down to your family's priorities, right? This All-Star Sports package had the Memory Maker with it as well. So you could very easily take that $180 and put it into the souvenirs, which I did mention in the first video. I wanted to just, obviously the All-Star Sports has pretty much a big, pretty full package, right? It has the base package with Memory Maker, lightning lanes, and almost $200 for souvenirs and food. If you took off Memory Maker, you'd have almost another $200 for your souvenirs and food. And then moving on, obviously the spending money gets less until we come to French Quarter, when we put our park days down to 3 park days, 1 park per day, we were able to bump up our souvenir fund for $286. So that's a pretty big jump in souvenir money that we have here between the 2 moderate resorts. Whether, adding on the Hopper and having non-Hopper. So if you stayed at Coronado Springs and just did the 3 park days with no Hopper, you would have some extra money for the souvenirs here as well. So you can really play around with all of these things depending on what is the priority for your family. That's really all it comes down to. But I just wanted to show the different types of things that you can do to get your budget down to where you want it. Thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you at all, please give me that big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss part 3 and any of my other upcoming videos. So until next time.